when looking at England's build-up play and a lot of their possession play, I thought there was an imbalance on the wide areas where they made changes between Walker and Sturridge in particular, but also the use of Rose. Now for me, in the first game with Rose and Sturridge, they had a far more degree of success in the first game against Russia when Rose was playing right up here between the lines. Against a 4-4-2, they've already got a 3 versus 2 in the first line in this area, so there's no need for them to operate in sort of deeper areas. But here I'm going to highlight Sturridge's position, where I feel to me there's a very straightforward vertical passing option, and he's just, the awareness is not there, and it means that when Cahill's driving through, he runs into a brick wall and a crowd of players. Second example that I'm going to show is pretty similar again. So as players building up down this right hand side, we can see that the winger and fullback are operating in the same line as each other here. The framework with which to keep possession doesn't exist. There's almost 3 players through the central area of the pitch. There's nobody operating in the half space. There's nobody offering valid inside support. And really again, Cahill could easily make a pass in between the gaps and in between the lines of players there. But England are kind of causing their own problems a little bit, forcing England to play a lot more backwards and sideways than perhaps they needed to. They could have played more forward and penetrating passes. I make an argument as well to say that I think England's counter-attacking was way off point. Now when I think about counter-attacking sides, I think very much about goals like this from Manchester United, where when you break, the priority is pace and depth. Runners going on in behind, power. Okay, you think about German teams counter-attacking Mourinho's Real Madrid side, winning the ball back, breaking and scoring within inside 6 seconds. That's the perfect execution for me of a counter-attacking goal. This is only one example of several here. As I stop the play here, you can see both Sterling on the left hand side and Sturridge on the right hand side. Both of them could make power runs in behind and really pin the full-backs back, and Kane could make a run towards the ball trying to draw a centre-back in where there's a lot of space in behind at this point. But you can see the difference. Look at this, no energy, no depth, forcing to go backwards. There's actually nobody penetrating in behind the lines like a Vardy might have done in that situation, and England yet again forced back to the goalkeeper. So you can see England's build-up play, very slow tempo. It's patient at this point, which, you know, there's nothing wrong with this, just to set yourself and set your scene. But you can see again Rose is quite in a deep position where I'd like to see him much higher. By doing that, I think it would allow Rooney to drop into the little pockets, which again Sterling could then move into Rooney's position. I think the problem I have with Dyer just being a single pivot is that he's very inaccessible, easy to mark out and keep out the game with the 2 strikers, but equally Rooney and Ali are not really accessible. It's difficult for the centre-backs to find them, play passes between the lines to them, due to how narrow and compact the midfield 4 is. And as such, England get forced into the wide areas, and they can't circulate the ball more in central zones, which is where a lot of the problems become, because once they get into the wide areas it becomes very, very easy for Iceland, like in this example, where they press very well. To be fair to them, you can see here the striker closes down the centre-back so he can't go back. You can see the winger press really, really well in order to prevent passes more inside. You can see the second striker still trying to cut off access to central midfield for inside support. And so it's very good pressing from Iceland. You've got to give them a lot of credit, but England are still the victim of their own downfall, in my opinion, where they sort of only dominated numerically in their own first couple of lines. They got stuck in wide areas like this where they're forced backwards, where it becomes easy, and then they played a lot of aimless long balls. I think you can see examples of it all here again. You can see 3 versus 2 for England in the first line. Dyer's difficult for them to access and reach. You can see they can't play to any of the central midfielders. They're not accessible at this moment in time, so they're just left playing into the wide areas and just circulating horizontally. Once they get into here, again, it becomes easy and predictable, so England are often going to get forced back and left just playing. And when they do switch the play quite well here and they could move forwards, again I'm looking thinking, could Sturridge be in the inside pocket to just drive that pass forward, and can then Walker get on the overlap as the fullbacks going with Sturridge to mark tight? So as you can see here, the fullback is marking touch tight. Does leave the space in behind. A number of players could exploit this space. Walker's in a relatively deep position here. For me, his great strength was his attacking, the fact that he's more of a winger. but you could also make a case for Dele Alli making that run in there. So for me, it just reiterates my initial thoughts that we've created an imbalance on the wings. The fluidity is not there. We're not playing to people's strengths anymore, which for me was the fact that Walker was our biggest threat and one of our best outlets down one side and Rose down the other. We've kind of taken that away from ourselves and made ourselves a little bit more predictable. Because here Kyle Walker's in the, has got the ball and he can easily go straight back inside. Iceland want to pin us in the wide areas. That is their tactical plan from a defensive perspective. So try and circulate the ball in central areas. This could easily go back into Cahill, who might be able to find the hole in mid. Now Sturridge could do a lot better there, but you can see how we played into Iceland's hands too much. And in the end, I think it wore England down, and they started to panic and make rash decisions like this, where this could easily be, played back out wide, more patient, but we're just shooting from very random, poor areas instead of trying to create good quality chances. And when England did create good quality chances, I think this summed up England's night really, because if this is drilled in first time right foot across a 6-yard box, you'd back that to be in the net 50% of the time at least. But it comes back on the left and it just kills momentum and kills the attack. And again, we're seeing England's counter-attacking play here. Great situation where again I can't help but feel as though this run here takes the full back away, gives a lot more space. This pass could easily go into here. I actually think this is a really good run from Sterling. He's doing the right thing here, getting on the inside of his defender, but the quality is not what you'd expect, and it all just kind of went downhill really there. We started to see in the second half things far worse than what I've showed here in the first in terms of misplayed passes, miscontrol and poor decision making. But when you play against teams that are clearly good on the defensive side of the game, as Iceland are, because they've beaten Holland, Spain and Germany prior to the Euros, we shouldn't underestimate them. When you can't break the team down, you have to find a different way and a different solution, and this is again another area where I'm going to be critical of England because they didn't find a solution. They did try and play over it once or twice, but if you're going to play over the press, you need to have the players in the wide areas who are natural wingers and very dominant in 1v1s. Think of Douglas Costa, Robben at Bayern Munich. Okay, and then not only do you need that, but you need in your first line better quality of ball players. So we had John Stones on the bench who might have been able to offer something a little bit different in terms of dynamic. But Chris Smalling and Cahill are not your ball players. We could have had Michael Carrick or Rooney dropping more into the first line, picking up the ball and looking to spray those 40-50 yard balls into the corners if that was part of the plan to play over the press. But for me, I felt we missed the biggest trick of all, which was to try and make Iceland have the ball. Here's an example of what I'm showing. Here you've got Pep up against Leverkusen, one of the best pressing sides, most difficult to break down. He utilised the passing range and qualities of Alonso and Neuer, his goalkeeper, and had natural wingers like Douglas Costa, Kingsley Coman, Robben, etc. out on the wings, and was looking to get players in 1v1 situations where he could dominate to break the opposition down. I've also seen tactics where teams have deliberately created what we call a double transition. Pochettino utilises Alderweireld to play long diagonal passes at Tottenham where they expect to lose the ball. The opposition believe they've got a regain, and the next thing they know they're outnumbered 2 or 3 versus 1, and Tottenham with their intensive press win that ball back and create counter-attacking situations. I've seen Mourinho's sides that have been playing 4-3-3 change to 4-4-2 in order to allow the opposition to have an extra player in central midfielder, again to create the illusion that they can start to dominate the game, that they start to come out with the ball, and the design of that is to create more counter-attacking situations. I've seen Bielsa and Luis Enrique and Pep and Tuchel at Dortmund create massive overloads down one side of the pitch with a view to then switching the play at lightning quick speed to get his best confrontational players again in 1v1s and 2v2s down the sides. England offered nothing in terms of contemporary ideas, something different, being a bit innovative, trying to find a solution. And for me that was the biggest disappointment about everything throughout the 3-4 games, is that we learnt nothing throughout the Euros to improve and adapt to the tournament's environment.